قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تتجافى جنوبهم عن المضاجع يدعون ربهم خوفا وطمعا ومما رزقناهم ينفقون فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. The night, we said, for the righteous person is a time of worship, and it is a time of reflection over Allah's honorable book. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam continues in this sermon to then speak about certain actions that take place in this night. He says, فَهُمْ حَانُونَ عَلَى أَوْسَاطِهِمْ. This speaks about when something leans or bends in a certain way, that their backs are bent in this night. He says, مُفْتَرِشُونَ لِجِبَاهِهِمْ وَأَكُفِّهِمْ وَرُكَبِهِمْ. And then he says, وَأَطْرَافِ أَقْدَامِهِمْ. We understand from this what? Notice the body parts that have been mentioned. That the back is bent. The forehead, when you say muftarishun, that they are spread, or when you're saying they are spread out, they're lying down, they're spread out. We are speaking about the forehead. He says, أَكُفِّهِمْ, meaning their palms. And then he mentions the knees, and then he says, وَأَطْرَافِ أَقْدَامِهِمْ. This is suggesting prostration. That the night is a time of worship. It is a time of a certain type of worship. And then he says, يَطْلِبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فِي فَكَاكِ رِقَابِهِمْ. This one we'll put aside for now. Let's talk about this type of worship, a worship that's within the night. A worship or a prayer, you could say, that is within the night. Firstly, we ask ourselves, everyone asks the question, what is the meaning of life? Sometimes they used to call it, back in the days where $1,000 meant something, they used to call it the $64,000 question. And then as inflation came about and money started to become devalued, and the million suddenly arrived, people started calling it the $64 million question. But the most important question that people ask is, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? What are we here for? What are we doing around here? When the question is asked to the Creator, if I have a device, I ask the one that makes the device. The one that makes mankind, the one that created mankind, when you ask, why was I created? Allah Azza wa Jal gives a sentence that's called a restricted sentence. Because there are two, if you want to call them prefixes, but they're actual, in Arabic they'll be called ahruf, but they're prefixed before the sentence. The first one where he says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Now when you have this ma, and then you have this illa, they call this a sentence that is a restricted sentence. It's restricted and confined to having just one meaning. It's all inclusive. There's no other reason. So when Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ, this could be possibly because jinn were created before man. as in the human being, because we know that Allah Azza wa Jal had created Iblis. I'm saying this through the evidence that we have at hand, being a jinn, before he created man. This is probably why they are put before in the sentence. That Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ. So in other words, he confines it to only one purpose. That man and jinn were created for one and one, this and only that. Purpose, he says, إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Your purpose is to worship. There is no other purpose for you in this world except to worship. So, you may think to yourself, what does that mean that I'm created to worship? If you realize in a lot of the old stories you read about hermits. Hermits were people that used to, or that's more of a hermit would be more of a general term. If I wanted to use an ecclesiastic term, a religious term, I would actually turn to use a recluse. Rather than a hermit, a reclusive life. Someone that used to live inside a cave was a recluse. Basically, someone that was a tariq, someone that had left this world, detached themselves from this world and lived to worship. A reclusive life. We don't have this in Islam today, because Allah Azza wa Jal has shown through the teachings of what worship is. We have a general type of worship, and then we have a specific type of worship. Something that's general. For example, when you go to work, you are worshipping. If your work involves you gaining a permissible income to live and allow your family to live, this is a form of worship. But if I'm going to worship, if I go to work just for the sake of making money, this does not become worship. This isn't forbidden, but I've missed the aim. I've missed what the target is, or the goal that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed for me. Take for example, if I walk into a doctor's surgery. I enter the doctor's surgery for treatment. Now while I'm there being treated, I read the things on the wall. You know, when he turns his back, I might play with one of those abacuses he has, or I don't know if the plural's abaci, but you know, I play with one of those, or I look at his family photos and his dog around his family and play with a few of the things there, or I take a look at things, or I look at the computer screen. I might do other things. There might be a model of a human skeleton, or something for me to entertain myself. But my purpose of entering the surgery is to be treated. Your purpose in this world is to worship. But if anything leads towards this worship, if it's within the same line, then it's considered worship. For example, if I eat in order to gain strength to worship, that's worship. That eating is worship. Even if I eat what's permissible, that's worship, because I'm not eating what's impermissible. Or not, sorry, what's not permissible. When I do something that is permissible, this is also an act of worship. Because I've obeyed Allah Azza wa Jal, this is inclusive of being worship. But the whole purpose of us to be here is for worship. Now when people look at worship in its exclusive sense, or in its specific sense, people tend to associate this with the elderly. You know, this is for those that are on their way to nursing homes, those that are on their way to retirement. And even when you go to the masajid, you'll find the majority of people there are who? The elderly. Running out the clock, they spend it in the masjid. I remember the first time we went to Hajj, and I went with some of the brothers that are here, and we were all young at the time, and we were seated down and we were talking about religion, discussing religion, and one of the older men came and sat with us and said, "You shouldn't be talking about religion, you're still young. We're in the Hajj, we're not anywhere else." He said, "You should be talking about women and cars and having a nice life. This is in the Hajj." This person was actually addressing us in this manner. That what are you doing talking about religion? This is the understanding that exists. People want you to talk about the dunya and what pertains to this world. God forbid that you may talk about worship. But worship in its specific sense, actual ibadah, when you see a dua, a supplication, when Musa ibn Ja'far salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Imam al-Qadim alayhi salam, when he asks God so he can have a moment where he can worship God exclusively, in the exclusive and the specific sense, that he is then placed in prison. When he's in prison, he sees the beauty of the prison is the fact that, if you read the narration, no matter how much it saddens you to hear this narration, is that when the Imam was in the prison, when Harun looked at the Imam, he said, "Where is he?" Because he could see a rag on the ground, a cloth on the ground. And the warden said, "That's him." He wakes up in the morning and he prays his prayers and then he prostrates to the noon. Exclusive and specific worship. And he remains in that state till it's noon prayer, then he'll pray the noon prayer and he'll prostrate. Because he's confined to this jail cell. This is what's called this exclusive worship. This specific worship. And this is why we have this worship at night. It is specific and it is exclusive. And what's the beauty of the worship at night? It's between you and God. There's no one there watching you. There's no one there taking account. It's between you and God. I don't go to see my friends. I don't see my friends the next day and say, "You know what? Wallah, those 11 rak'at, they were pretty hard last night." Or I bring them, because once I do that, I know what I've done is I've picked up my prayers and I've given them to the people. I've handed them out to people and waited for their reward. And you do get rewarded. If you tell someone you pray Salat al-Layl, you get rewarded because they say, "MashaAllah, he prays Salat al-Layl." So you get the accolades in the dunya. So you get the reward in this world. But those that want that exclusive reward, it's between them and Allah Azza wa Jal. If we look at the actual prayer, before we look at how it's regarded, and we want to understand, look at the way that the infallibles would speak about it. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, when he would give his wasiyah to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he mentioned certain things. And sometimes he would repeat things. For example, his last words on his deathbed, Ruhi Fida, were what? As-salat, as-salat, as-salat. He repeated prayers 3 times. He repeated the concept of you performing your prayers. There are certain times where they repeat things numerous amount of times. In this case, he says, "Ya Ali, consider firstly that this isn't a wajib action. It is recommended." He says, "Ya Ali, alayka bi salat al-layl, wa alayka bi salat al-layl, wa alayka bi salat al-layl." That, "Oh Ali, what is he giving him an advice?" This is for us, obviously. An advice as to what you need. This is why it's repeated. Rasulullah didn't like the sound of his own voice, that he kept repeating the sentence. This is what some people must have thought when he was speaking. Why is he saying it again? There is a purpose for this. There is an underline for this, so you can understand that this is what carries importance. He says this sentence 3 times. Also, if you remember, when Amir al-Mu'mineen, I mentioned this on several nights ago, a couple of nights ago, about when he says, وَقَلَّتْ الزَّادِ, that the provisions we have for the next world is so little. Our supplies are so little. We don't carry that much. This is why do we turn up to majalis? Just to give you a look into this. Because some people, I really need to bring this up before I continue. Some people have an idea that I want to go to the Hajj, and then they change their mind because they're worried about their financial situation. You hear it many times. They have the idea they want, they pull out. Too many people pull out last second. Why? Because they're worried about financial situations. Others, and this is probably, I think this is another ones that fall in the same category, are the ones that say, all right, there's majalis, but I'm going to sit at home, I'm going to watch the majlis on television. You hear this all the time. I'm going to watch, put on, we've got 20, 30 satellite channels or more. Watch the majlis on television. MashaAllah, the majlis of the Sayyid or the Sheikh was good. It made me cry and I had a good time being at home. What is the purpose of you congregating? You get rewarded for watching it on TV. You get a reward, you did something good. What's the purpose of being here? I mentioned this a couple of nights ago for Layl al-Qadr. That if there's one person in the congregation that's good, their dua covers everybody. Imagine there's multiple people. The other thing that is purposeful for you is your provisions are so low. Your supplies that you take to the next world are so low. Don't you ever hear, when you are hearing majalis, we hear that Imam Hussein, they say, أن الحسين ذخر لنا. You hear that all the time. That a lot of people hear that the Hussein is dhukhr. This is to say he is your ammunition. He is that supply. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He is the supply. He is your ammunition for the next world. This is what, he is the supplies that you're carrying. He is the provision that you have. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is that provision. You attending the majalis are, what are you doing? You're accumulating provisions. And because we lack provisions, we need to ask those on the other side, what is it that I need to take with me? We have a narration that Isa ibn Maryam, alayhim as-salam, he says that after his mother had passed away, he called for her and asked. He said to her, Ya umma kallimini. He says to her, Hal turidina an tarja'i ila dunya. Would you want to return? Do you want to return to this world? And she replies by saying, Na'am. Yes, but there's a purpose for this. It's like when someone wants immortality. You know, when someone says, I want to live forever. You ask them why, they go, because I enjoy this world. I want to live. You know, when someone dies, you always hear this, you know, the Australian funerals, someone dies of the Westerners. Well, she loved life, you know. They always say that, this person loved life. You don't want to live, they love to live. People love living. But there is a purpose. For example, when Dhul Qarnayn was looking for Ayn al-Hayat, when he was looking for the fountain of life, why was he in search of it? When the angel asked him, why do you seek the fountain of life? If you ask one of us, why do I, for example me, why do I seek the fountain of life? You say, you know, I want to have a good life, long, enjoy it, money, whatever I'm looking for. But with Dhul Qarnayn, what are you looking for? He says, I want to live so I can worship God in the most worthy way. That is his purpose. He wants to live to worship. Because I said this world is the world of where I sow here. This is where the tillage takes place, where I work with the land and I sow the seed so I can reap in the next world. So when she says she wants to live, this is someone that has been elevated by Allah and chosen by Allah. She says, لِأُصَلِّ لِلَّهِ فِي لَيْلَةٍ شَدِيدَةِ الْبَرْدِ. That I want to worship and pray to God on a night that has extreme cold. And extremely, these nights that are passing, they are extremely cold. And you are, in these nights, you are fortunate. This is Shahr Ramadan al-Mubarak. So your prayers, you still have a couple of nights to go. Your prayers in the night are so great with reward. They're great in number because it's Shahr Ramadan. You got this extra reward factor in this month. And the other thing she mentions, which we obviously don't have in Shahr Ramadan, which is something we'd have to do, that has nothing to do with our hadith, but I'll say it. And then she says, وَأَصُومُ يَوْمًا شَدِيدَ الْحَرِّ. So the other reason why, she says, so I can fast a day that is extremely hot. And then she says, فَإِنَّ الطَّرِيقَ مَخُوفٌ. This is the scary part. That the road ahead that lies after death is a road that is scary. That people fret from this road. They deter from this road. They're afraid of this road. She is saying this is your munition. Praying on a cold night. Then there's one story about night prayers. And then I'll start with the next point. There's one story surrounding one of the ulama that was on his way, that was going to go pray his night prayers in Haram Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Then when he woke up, he went to wake up his son. You know, when you're warm in your bed, the last thing you want to do is wake up. So he says, wake up. The son says, listen, I'm tired. And he says, no, come, we're going to go pray in the Haram. And the son goes, go without me, I'll only delay you. I'll only delay you. He said, no, but I'll wait. You get up, I'll wait for you. So the son finally gets up, You'd be thinking to himself, when you're being woken up to go to school, or woken up to go to work, and you're mumbling to yourself, we have to really do this, do I have to really go there? And all these other weird and wonderful things. So he does his ablutions, his wudu, and he walks with his father towards the Haram. And as they're going, there is a beggar sitting on the road as they're entering towards the shrine. And the father says to the son, this alim says to his son, what is this beggar, who is this man and what is he doing here? To the son. An obvious question. The son looks at the father, says, I'll answer the question. He says to his father, this man is a beggar and he's here to get some money that people give, some charity. And then the father says to the son, this man has left the warmth of his house. He's left wherever he has and come to sit outside the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And when we talk begging, is begging something that's praised in Islam, or is it something that we do, that is scorned? We deplore it. It's not something that's considered noble. It's something bad. That this man's out here begging. So then he says to him, says, how much do you think he might make in the night? He said, probably 1 dirham. He said, so this man's left the warmth of his house. He's left wherever he has come from to spend this cold night sitting outside for the chance to get what? 1 dirham. He said, do not be less than this beggar. This guy has given up everything, yet you have more to gain. Do not be less than him. He's come out. You come out. And then the youth that's with his father said, I never left the night prayer after hearing that. I never let it go, because it's an opportunity for you to come out in this night. To come out and pray at this night, and it's an opportunity that you don't get in the hereafter. Now, night prayer needs tawfiq. It's not something that you can do. So you could be up all night. I used to remember when we were young and we used to go out during Shahr Ramadan, we finish praying and then we go for a drive. You go for a drive and then you come home. And everyone, used to go to the bakeries, you get the manaish or whatever you're buying. And then we'd say, all right, let's go and hang out after we eat. Then at that last moment, when it was closing in on prayer time, there was probably half an hour, everyone started to disperse. So where are you going? He says, I want to get home and sleep before it's prayer time. This is what they would say. I want to go sleep before it becomes prayer time. You ask them why. He says, then I'll have to pray. This is Salat al-Subh. 2 rak'at, he says, I'll have to pray. And then you tell him you're going to pray it anyway. He said, yes, but I pray qada at Dhuhr time. Because if I sleep, I miss out. Then we have all this night. Salat al-Layl could be something as simple as what? Praying 2 rak'ats. 2 rak'at while you're lying in your bed. Yet you still even need tawfiq for that. To that point, you need tawfiq even for the slightest amount. And this is how you start. Never in your life, you're about to start something. Taban, I don't want to continue the rest of the discussion because it goes on to another doorway. But just this, to finish it off, before Samahta Sayyid gets up. Never think in your life, if I want to start doing something, I go to the extreme. You'll fail. Rome wasn't built in a day. You start on day 1 to the extreme, the next day you'll go worse than what you were. If you think from the first day, that's it, I'm going to pray all 11 rak'at and do all the mustahabbat that are there, mate, the second day, third day, you might do that. After that, you'll end up praying Salat Subh Qada. It's something that's brought in gradually. It's something you need to adapt to and learn. And it needs tawfiq. And this tawfiq will explain, inshallah, tomorrow night, and will also explain what is the benefits of this prayer. And what is the purpose. And this prayer is the only thing, when you read all the wasf of al-muttaqeen, Amir al-Mu'mineen speaks about, he speaks only when it comes to the prayer, he links it to that final bit, to save themselves from the fire, or save their necks from the fire of hell. This is linked there. Why is it with this that it's linked? Inshallah, tomorrow night we'll speak about this. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us our sins in this month, and that we never go back to what we have done. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to take any of us from this world until He accepts our actions. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the intercession of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.